So today, for our message, Joy asked me a few minutes ago, what are we going to talk about today? And I'm like juggling the thoughts. And what comes out of my mouth to her, so she can post it, is peace versus understanding. And then she and the couple board members went, what do you mean? That doesn't make sense. It's supposed to be peace and understanding. No, peace versus understanding, because you will never understand anything well enough to have peace. But if you have peace, you'll understand everything. So the whole talk can be summarized as that. Okay? Just that's it. Always God first, and in this case, peace. So we pray and we constantly say, I'm praying the Lord for understanding. And God's like, no. What do you want me to give you understanding about? Well, just tell me why. Somebody broke up with me, and broke my heart. Why? What you're wanting is not peace. You want to wrap your head around why things happen, which is not coming from God, that request. That's coming from the ego mind. And it will never be happy. Everybody in this room has had associations, friendships, etc., of any level. I mean, it could be just colleagues or whatever. People that ask things, you answer them, and they just keep asking. And sometimes the question doesn't even change. So why did you leave me? Well, I told you why I left. They might say, somebody might say, it's because whatever, A, B, C. Okay, next day, so why did you leave? And over and over and over. If there's no evolution in the question, then that's a sign that you're getting hooked into something unhealthy, or you're hooking someone. See, so I've always seen that in human beings, and I've always known I'm going to try to be careful not to ask too many questions. Not in a bad way. I just mean that I want to know where they're coming from. If something in me is willing to hear the answer, then I'll ask a question. If I know that part of me doesn't want to hear the answer, I'm going to have to be careful about asking. You see what I mean by that? Peace, which is of God. Understanding is not of God. Understanding is of, I want to understand something. You've even had people say to you, I just want to understand. And you say, well, I already told you 10 times, and you're still not understanding. Now, you don't have to blame them. You can say, it's a funny thing. I just must be terrible at explaining things. So, and sometimes you can even go so far, although you probably wouldn't because it's too facetious, but you might say, I'm going to make a recording of it. And anytime you want to ask the question again, just play the recording. That way, you have understanding, and I have peace and quiet. Think about it. Do you think they would be okay with that? No, because they want to hook you into their not understanding. You can be totally at peace. Jesus goes before Pilate and others, and they just ask and ask and ask, and he answers. And he did answer. It's in the scriptures, but he answered a lot more than what's in there. But at some point, he just went, done. No more answering. How dare you not answer? I've already answered you, and it's not good enough. And that's basically the last thing he says. Now, you and I, if we want to think of ourselves as on the journey towards Christ consciousness, that means you and I have to do the same thing sometimes. I've answered. I'm done. Again, if the questions are morphing, I understand that. Medical issue, and the doctor says A, B, and C. Is that for sure? Yes. Now, he told you yes, but you might say, is there something I can do about it? There's another question related, but it's a different question. It's morphing. It's growing because you want to understand. But most of us wanting to understand things. It could be committees, boards, member meetings, like we have a member meeting today, in fact. Sometimes there's just people that they're not going to understand. But why is that? Do they lack intelligence? Guys, they don't want to understand. That's why so many philosophers and scientists, religionists, they'll say things like the infamous line, well, we may never know. So you'll sit and watch on the stinking History Channel 2 hours of searching for Bigfoot, and they never find him. And you know what they say at the end? We may never know. Then why didn't you say that at the start of the show so I wouldn't watch it? They hook you in. They don't want to know. And if they did want to know, they would say, it's a fact. Bigfoot exists, or UFOs exist. Instead of playing into this ambiguity. Religion doesn't actually want answers. They want to keep God a mystery. Now, the only time something's why don't they just hire Sherlock Holmes and bring him into the church and he'll answer all their questions? Because they have to keep God a mystery because they don't understand God. Here's why. Because religion is in cahoots with the unholy trinity of science, religion, and politics. All right? I'm on a roll, huh? I'm sorry, man. If this is if this is too much, man, just go to sleep for a minute and I'll be done. But that unholy trinity, and those feed each other. They don't want answers. When some politician says something that's just not true, it's, they're never going to be guided to say the truth because they want to stay in this ambiguity. Religion, well, why does God do that? Well, it's a mystery. How come you guys don't know? Now, a mystic knows. Why? Because a mystic encourages connection with God. Then all of a sudden just go, I know. There have been people, psycho people, who have had near-death experiences, seen the other side, they come back and they go, I get it now. Just an ounce of God will answer everything. Psychos can do that. And yet, so-called religious people don't do it. They don't get it. Why don't they just say, I know now. I get it. And therefore, now that I get it, now I understand. If somebody's broken your heart, you want to know why, but it'll never be enough because your heart's broken. And women, although not to say like stereotyping, but generally speaking, a woman often says her heart gets broken. A man doesn't use that phrase that often. You know why? Because he doesn't realize his mind gets broken. When a woman gets dumped, her heart's broken because she's in the feeling of it. It's like, this is not computing to my heart. This is a complete shift, a disturbing experience. When the man does it, he has everything figured out on how things are going to be. When that changes, his mind gets broken. His mind gets broken. And that's why a male more often will keep asking the questions because his mind is getting broken. This doesn't make sense to me. What do you mean you're in love with someone else? See, and he's going to try to figure it out. He's going to try to ask questions. And to me, it's reasonable. Because if I'm your partner and I've done something changing the relationship and you're hurting, I'll answer forever if you want. Because to me, that's called making amends. If I've done something odd or broken our rules or agreements, I want to answer you. Now, if the answering, I can tell, is the same exact question, then I can see that there's something off a little bit. But if it's morphing, to me, it makes sense, and I'll answer questions, But in this world, when a person says, oh, look, there's a UFO, science will say there must be a rational explanation. Why is their explanation rational when they have none? You'll see these ships, and there's like beings in the window going, and they'll say it's swamp gas. The first time I heard that, all I could do was laugh. What is that? What is swamp gas? Seriously? Or they used, but it wasn't just me, there were 3,000 people that saw it. They waved, and we saw, there's photos, and no, they'll say it's mass hysteria. How come their answers aren't answers, but they're the published ones? They don't even have an answer. And it's published. We cannot confirm nor deny. Those kinds of answers. And we're sitting here, and this is where humans are really messed up, waiting for their answers. Waiting for them to validate it. There's somebody in their living room as I speak, watching some show, reading a paper and staying in his head, her head. They just do that. Staying safely away from the eventuality. Someone's going to be on TV eventually and say, we need to tell you. there are other species out there, and they are interacting. Now, some of us are going to be like, oh, this is boring. I've seen this show. Turn the channel, because we know. We're not waiting to understand why we thought we saw a ship, and then, whew, thank God, I thought I saw a ship, but the next day in the paper, they explained it. It was just the reflection of the sun on a cloud. Well, okay. Forget the landing gear that I saw. But here's a quick funny. There's a guy, I've worked with a lot. His name's Greg Braden. Now, Greg's a very dry kind of guy. He's always in a black suit, turtleneck. He's laser pointer for his laser show, for his slides. Very dry, And I don't see him laugh a lot. And his hair's always sprayed perfectly. I mean, he's a cracker. He's just straight. Genius, and he's straight. And one time he's doing a talk, and he said something, it's like it was so beautiful. It was so great and out of character. He said something about, I think maybe somebody even asked a question, but he said, well, I do get strange requests now and then. He said, I've had people come up to me and say, Greg, we're channeling this information, and we need to tell you to build like 50 by 50 cement landing pads for ships that are coming soon. Now, Greg, in his straight face the whole time, and he just, so the people are asking me to, build this 50 by 50 cement landing pad. And then with a straight face, he goes, and I cannot by any stretch imagine how a ship can be traveling interdimensionally and need a concrete landing pad. And I thought that was so beautiful. You know what I mean, right? Interdimension, portals, wormhole, all this, and then we can't land. Can you quickly pour some cement so we can touch down? Like, come on, man. So that was brilliant. Stop needing answers to things in life. Now, I'm asking us to do the impossible, really. As a human, you're wired to try to figure it out. And you're not figuring anything out. What you're doing is called coping. That's all you're doing. It's called settling. Because when you get in your head and you say, I want answers, you've become a prosecutor, like an attorney. I want answers. And I'm going to prove it, I'm going to disprove it. That's what you're doing. You're going into inner courtroom in your head. But sometimes, when you get answers, what you're looking for in the courtroom is called a settlement. Right? Undisclosed amounts, a settlement. But the word settlement comes from settling. So you're still settling. You don't have peace. You're saying, well, I could go for peace, or I could get what I want. Information to where my brain likes what it hears, and if it doesn't, it'll keep asking. Parroting, until you get some answer that seems semi-related to something, and you go, okay. We may never know. And you just conclude it like that. I want my answers, or I'm going to throw it all out. That's what they do. When we can't answer things, when we don't get the answers we want, we just wash it all away and say we may never know. So the religion in us, the politics in us, the science in us, they're not going to have an answer. They're not going to bring you what we really want. And you don't want understanding. You think you do, but that's when your ego's talking. All we really want is the peace of God. Watch what happens when you think of those words. When you have peace, there's this. And now, I understand or I don't care because I feel full. See? The head is going to go, okay, well, put peace on hold until we're finished with the court hearing. Constantly prosecuting, defending, on and on and on. Thinking it's going to bring us peace, and it cannot. And it's in every category of life. You say, hey, listen, I've got this ache in my body. And the ache is going to make you think that it's your body that's the problem and not the soul. And someone can say to you, hey, we checked it out, and it's this and not this bad thing, this really heavy. Oh, thank God. But where it feels like you got an answer that made you feel better. Oh, I feel so much better now. Or now when somebody says, well, I left you, I hate you for leaving me. Well, the reason I left is because I loved you so much, and I'm actually going to die soon. And I didn't want you to have to go through that. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, that's not so bad. And because you heard something you like, you've been bribed into forgiving them. And that's not fair, and it's not real. I'm not saying we don't do it. I'm saying it's how we constantly look for understanding. And somebody tells you you have a lesser disease than you thought, oh, thank God. Until the next one. When you have the peace of God, none of it matters. And they say, you have the bad one. You have 6 months to live. Okay, cool. That would be your answer if you have peace. The other one is, wait a minute. Who gave it to me? I want to know who to hate. It's always because the head looking for understanding, and there's a proper understanding. Let me make that clear. But the false versions of understanding, that head that does that, like I said, that's the ego mind. There is a proper form of understanding. It only comes when you have peace first. How do you know which one you're doing? The spiritual understanding or the ego understanding? How do you know which one you're doing? Well, one is the feeling. When I'm still leaning forward and furrowing my forehead and trying to figure things out, you can tell. The other one's like, I'm okay with it. There's this feeling. People that are passing over. There's all the anxiety about passing over and the resistance and all the stuff the body does. They pass over a near-death experience. They come back. God, it was so peaceful. I didn't care about anything. And I'm looking, going, don't even resuscitate me. I'm doing great. And everybody else in the room is, clear, and everybody's stressing, and you're like, just let it go. I'm good. It's different mindsets. You and I can, and we will inevitably experience total peace, even on earth. It's our destiny. Technically, we're part of God, as we know. We're made in God's image. So that means there's a part of us that's already tranquil and at peace constantly. We just don't know that peace because it's almost like living in a parallel universe. And in one universe, peace. We flew through a veil into the world of illusion, and it's anything but peace. We asked, what would life be like without God? And it's that, stress. I need to understand. Tell me everything's okay. Tell me I'll be all right. Tell me I won't die. And, it doesn't bring you peace. You think it does. When they say everything's okay, tests came out, and I'm saying all you did was have a bargain, which is fine because I'm glad you feel better today. I really am. I would never tell a child who was anxious and now feels better that they're wrong for feeling better. And I wouldn't tell you you're wrong for feeling better. But I have to say, there's temporarily feeling better and there's feeling the peace and presence of God. They're totally different. They're totally different. One says, I'll get the ultimate when I get enough of what I want. The other says, I have what I want, don't care about the other. But I can have it. But I'm okay without it. Understanding, sure. And there's a couple kinds of understanding. There's the ego-based, I'm going to get understanding to get peace. There's the peace that gives you understanding. Peace that surpasses understanding. You ever hear that phrase? I have the peace that surpasses understanding. Great line. That's called peace versus understanding when I'm doing a talk about it. Peace that surpasses understanding. Don't need it. I feel good. I'm alive. I'm clear. But do you still gain any forms of understanding? In other words, is there any good forms? Yes, when you have peace first. And in my opinion, when you have that connection, you get a form of understanding, and it does involve the mind, like the other one does. But the other one's a manic mind, an anxious mind, trying to get something. This one is sort of like, I'm already good, but you still can get understanding. And the understanding can be wisdom, clarity on topics. It can even be knowledge. You can download quantum physics when you have proper understanding. Peace can give you anything. So there are people that have downloaded spontaneously downloaded profound information because something shifted in their mind and it came. Jesus didn't know what he knew because he studied academically. He just said, if I have God, how could I not know that 1 + 1 is 2? What information could be like not there? When I have understanding, everything else is chill. Everything else. And that's how I do what I do. But I mean on any topic. Now you might not feel it on every topic because, maybe you're navigating and growing that, under all of us, that understanding. But you can plug in not knowing how to be a healer and be a healer. You can plug in not knowing technicalities of life, mechanical thing, and it comes to you. You can channel being a parent. And you can be a single mom and channel also being a dad. Nothing limited. Nothing. It can come to us anything. I mean, I remember family members when I was a kid. They were involved in things of the world and, and union elections and things like that. One time they brought me along. I was probably in high school, maybe, middle of high school or something. But I was, probably 16, 17. And I went along. And, and they're kind of hoping that their guy's going to win. But unfortunately, there's been this other guy in this office year after year after year after year. And anytime anybody tries to run, he'll make the union have no work for them, and they call it starving them out. So they'll punish you for trying to run against that one, right? So there's these games. So everybody was like really trying to, let's get rid of this guy once and for all. So there's this election, and I remember they said, well, the first results are whatever the number was, 300 to 250. And then like an hour later, they came out, it's 475 to 600, whatever. And I go, this is who's going to win. Immediately I knew. Because I could feel the trend. Even though it was still the morning and it wasn't anywhere close to the end. It didn't matter. I could feel something. You can feel how to be a dad when you're not even a male. You can feel how to be a mom. You can feel how to listen to your kids when they're talking and not have that proverbial, generation gap. I never even understood stuff like that. So when they go to Jesus and say, Jesus, wait, look, hold on. Jesus is talking, and then he starts getting to some cool stuff. Oh, hold on, Jesus. If you're going to get to the cool stuff, let's make sure we have the women leave the room. This is the culture at the time. This is the custom. Wait. You're getting the cool stuff. Ladies, you'll have to leave now. And it wasn't because they were talking about like sexy things. He was talking about deep conversations, not allowed. Women were not allowed to enter temples. They had to stay in the foyer. All right? So they're saying, let's ask, and it was Magdalene was one of them, and that's in the Bible, and they're asked to leave. And Jesus says, why? Well, because only men are supposed to be able to listen to these kinds of teachings. He said, then make her a man. Now, what did he mean? Like, let's give an instantaneous sex change operation? You know what he meant? Just let's imagine that she is that thing. Whatever you think she needs, just imagine it, and it's so. Just in your minds, accept that she's got that part that you think is needed to hear this information. Isn't that amazing? So what can you be left out of? What can we not accomplish? And I just need to understand. And I've seen and heard people, say these things. People saying to me, a man calls, a private session, and my wife and this and that, we're having challenges in our relationship, and I'm just trying to understand. I know you're not going to understand by human terms. So what my job then would be to do is to channel universal language that will somehow enter their mind, because this is a bridge. There's God's way of getting understanding, there's humans, but there's a third one, leaking God's into the human one, where they're not going after God peace first, but there's still a way to get them partway there. The right words coming from Spirit through you, and it's all of a sudden, it's like a multi-dimensional experience. Someone who's, no, I want to know and understand, and you give them an answer and they go, you see? They're not committed to God or anything like that per se, but you brought God to them. And that could be so miraculous, they'll change forever. You know, they might still tend towards their head here and there, and that's fine. But something major shifted. Something shifted so multidimensionally, so dramatically, that in that moment, they've got a piece of God. You know, and it's like, wow. You know, just there's this. I remember one time doing a session about 30 years ago, and I was overseas. This was Australia. And the president of the board of some center was where I stayed. He put me up at his house with him and his wife, or girlfriend, or whatever she was. And I went and did my talk, and we came home, you know, and they were sitting in the living room, and I was milling about, you know, and putting my things away. And he kind of said, you know, you seem to know a lot of things, you know, can I ask you a question? Sure. And usually I'm not this, let's call it rough or direct in a sense. But, you know, I was like, you know, just doing my thing, and he just happened to catch me I'm doing something right now. And, you know, can I ask you a question? And, you know, I really feel like I have to be the president of this board again. I want to do that, renew my contract or whatever he was saying, you know. And I just, my wife here, she's not wanting me to do that. And I'm feeling, and I mean, all I did was a sentence. I said, well, because of your insecurities about life, you know, you're wanting to compensate, but being the president. And this sentence, and he was just like, I swear. And I thought, uh-oh. You know, because you caught me on the fly, so it came out a little more. But it was true. It was just, boom, a little much, you know, but true and fine. And she just went, well then. And she looks at him, you see, I told you, mate. I told you, mate. I told you there was some other issues here, you know. And then I realized, oh, I just got pulled into a thing. One time, these two ladies who were in a relationship with each other, they were my ride to the airport. This is in Canada. And they're my ride to the airport, and they're driving, and I'm just sitting in the back seat, you know. All of a sudden, one of them turns around, can I ask you a question? Sure. She looks at her partner, well. And you know where that's going, right? I want to understand because she thinks such and such, and I don't agree, and you know. And then here it comes. Boom, 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 you know. But part of my answer to them, and they kind of went, whoa. Because I don't take sides. I'm just going to tell the truth. If it happens to fit this side or that side or both or neither, I'm still just going to say the truth. But, you know, I'm still loving and tactful about it, but I'm going to do that. So I answered, and they were like, oh, and you could just tell their minds were blending more. Because that's real truth, peace. It bridges minds instead of splits them. So part of the answer to them was, sometimes when you're not sure what to do, and you see a sign calling you to do something that's uncomfortable, just do it. And the one saying to you, oh, my God, I'm sorry, you know, honey, I didn't realize, you know, and they got it. So that was their answer. Or was it our answer? So now I got on the plane, and you're, you know, ladies and gentlemen, seatbelt, blah, 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 blah. We're sitting there, I crack open a book, I'm just kind of browsing or whatever it is. And then, you know, we start taking off. As we're ascending, there's a commotion a few rows up, and I have headphones on as usual, which you're not supposed to wear at that point, but I always put them on. So I'm music and reading, just settling in for a long flight. And I think I was heading for Florida from Canada at the time. So it was a long flight, so I'm settling in. And I'm on the aisle, which I usually didn't sit in, but I'm on the aisle. Now I can sense, you know, like there's a commotion. Even though I'm here, something, I call it my spider senses, you know, our spider senses. So I can feel something. So I'm like, what's going on? And I look, and there's somebody choking on something. And people are like, and the flight attendants they're supposed to stay in their seats, and everybody's not sure, looking around, what are we going to do? I unbuckled, got out of the row, walked up a couple rows, took the person, pulled their head back, dug something out of their throat, made them cough, and then I went and sat down. And I mean, and then I could feel something, and I look up and people are like, you know, what the heck was that? You know, looking quite, you know, kind of, they're scared of me, or, you know, it was kind of funny. And I'm like, oh, you know, and I laugh with them. Oh, yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? But if I hadn't had that conversation in the car, it might not have entered my mind or been as raw or present for me to hear something's happening, you've got to act. I mean, I don't have any experience in that. I didn't go to, throat digging obstacle classes 101, obstructions, clearing the throat obstructions, I never did. So if you would have asked the human one, I would have been nervous. But I wasn't. I was in another, I gotta go. And we're all meant to live that way. Something's needing done, let's just do it. And, people will say to me, well, but do you stop? Do you take a break? We all take breaks here and there. But to me, when the day is done, I'll sit down and rest if I need to rest or whatever. But in between, I just feel we can all learn to say, how can I be helpful today? Now, that doesn't mean be on hyper alert and be a rescuer. I'm just saying there's another dimension. It's still right here, but not seen. All dimensions are right here and not seen. Then how do you get to them? Your mind has to be in the dimension you want to go to. So, for example, if you want to access fifth dimensional consciousness, which has so much to do with love and oneness, then you have to shift to that consciousness. You can't take an herb to get you there. Oh, I know some that I do. Yeah, man, I do this one and that one. Desert, this and that, and frog. Lick the skin of a frog and you start tripping out. You didn't go to the fifth dimension. If you aren't in a state of love, you don't go to the love dimension. You just went into the astral world. And there's all kinds of freaky beings in the astral world. Some of them are your relatives that didn't move any further. Some of them are mischievous beings. And some are nice, normal, like you and I, passing over to the other side. And we pass through the fourth dimension onto other dimensions. But seriously, peace is peace and understanding is understanding. Understanding still involves thinking. We even say, I think I understand. You understanding what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. Okay? So at the end of the day, our real self does know this truth. But the real self is constantly battling that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So next time you feel like you're struggling to understand something, it's not easy to just erase that. It's not easy. I remember one time doing a card reading for myself, and I pulled something and I went, I didn't like that card at all. So I sat there trying to think it into a better meaning. And, no, wait, prayer, peace, it's all right. Let me just look again. And it's what we do. Because underneath, the thing called the quest for understanding is one thing. It's called fear. The only reason you want to know why they left is because you're afraid you're inadequate and they left you because of you. How come we don't just go, well, apparently, they're having some sort of a meltdown or an epiphany or whatever it is, and just let them be. We don't know that. What we live on is fear. That's why you want to know the diagnosis, and when you hear what you want to hear, okay, that's okay then. Make sense? Your head, but it's because of fear. I'm afraid I'm going to be sick, so I want an answer. Tell me what I want to hear. And that's just cheating life. And you can't cheat life. It's going to happen. You'll get sick in some form. You'll die in some form. Well, I want to know why, and I want to know when. People that I remember there was a guy back in the 70s who was a wealthy man, and he was putting money out there. He offered $1 million to anybody that could prove to him that they could tell him who he would be in his next life so he could leave his money to himself. Swear to God. Swear to God. Swear to God. Is that like the weirdest form of insurance you ever heard of? Like, that's bottom line. I want to be in control. And we all know people and have sometimes ourselves been, I want to be in control. But you're not getting the root. Why do you want to be in control? Because you're afraid. Whether the fear is inadequacy, it's a fear of mortality, it's still fear. So when you're needing answers and needing to control something, very sorry for you. That's how we should say and think to each other. When you see somebody doing that, feel for them. Because the only reason they could be doing it is because they're that scared about their inadequacy or I want to be heard. And I've talked about that before. I need to be heard. Why? Because it makes me feel like I'm valued. You're already valued. How could you not be valued? Well, my daddy never made me feel valued. Well, so what? He was wrong. But also my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth partners also didn't make me feel valued. You know what you need to do? Stop dating them. Stop marrying those people. Find some value, and then somebody will match you at your new value. Stop dating when you're still in the low value. So that concept, it's ego and it's fear-based, and the ego will keep you in that direction because it lives while you're in that direction of mind. As long as you're afraid, you'll have an ego. When you start saying, you know what, wait, no, clear my head. Peace, peace. I am entitled, and you are entitled to peace. Human entitlement is just disgusting kind of behavior. It's basically just ego-based. You are entitled to divinity. That's true entitlement. You are entitled to peace. You are entitled to knowing your real self. You're entitled to forgiving and being forgiven for anything you have ever judged yourself or others for. Those are the entitlements. Goodness is the only thing you really want to be entitled for. Not value from others. I'm entitled to my money, so I'm going to leave it to myself. It doesn't make sense. Well, it's mine. Wait till you get to the other side. You'll understand a little more. And then you're going to be like, oh, I can't believe I fell for that. I was going for my understanding. I get to the other side, and they show you. You get a little bit more. It's not like you become enlightened because you're dead. But you get a bit more of a bird's eye view, and you go, oh, geez. My whole lesson was attachment to money, and here I'm trying to leave. Now I left it. I found a Hindu astrologer who told me who I was going to come back as. Because there is some of that. So I left my money to myself, and now I'm on the other side realizing that was my lesson. So now my next life is going to be a curse because I didn't get it. You know? So now I'm going to come back wealthy. Wouldn't you know? Just my luck. You know, see what I'm saying? It's like you were supposed to break that spell. So, to peace. What can I do to help with peace today? Ask that. So a client, a child, your own partner. When people are acting up, try to think in terms of, how can I help you find peace today? And those are, blessed are the peacemakers, right? It's not, blessed are the understanding establishers. Blessed are the peacemakers. Oh, thank God. How can I bring peace today? I saw a thing happen yesterday that was interesting. Judy was having one of her estate sales, and we were there, and something happened where a lady bumped up against something, a piece of art that was on the wall, and it fell. And I kind of heard it and saw, whoa, you know, it wasn't heavy, but maybe like 5 pounds. But boom, and it fell. Okay, fine. But that lady was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, so sorry. So I saw it. Blessed are the peacemakers. I walked over and said, it's okay, you know, it's not a big deal. It was an accident. And then there's this other lady who, when it fell, it kind of like barely brushed her. And she was, I didn't like it. What, who did that? Why did you guys do? Here it comes. I want to understand. Why did you guys do it? And she goes, you know, and I said, oh, you know, yeah, you okay? No, I'm not okay. She goes, and that hurt. It didn't land on her. That hurt. And I go, oh, I'm very sorry. She goes, you don't sound sorry. What does that mean? I wasn't like, sorry. I mean, I said, I'm very sorry. How could I not sound sorry? Because your brain doesn't want to believe it. You don't want to hear sorry. You don't want to believe it. You want to stay on the attack. And at the same time, The other gal's scared. So I'm really sorry. And when I'm telling this one, it's okay, because she's, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm trying to comfort her. Even if I was a stranger in this building, I would have done exactly the same thing. It's okay. But the more I was also comforting that one, no, come over here and comfort me and tell me you're sorry. But I was telling this one, it's okay. It's not okay. She should have watched where she was going. Yeah. Yeah. Okay? It's just trying to gain understanding. This always happens, we get butterflies and birds and whatever outside the windows. And they come up in such opportune moments, One time, I think it was my first year here, when I was talking, believe it or not, there were strange lights out there. Ships. And there were people like, and I'm going, I know, this is amazing, isn't it? This was an evening talk, and they're going, they're pointing at the window, and I go, the ships, right? Because I'm used to these things, But they're like, yeah, look. It was really cool, but it is what it is. So please remember, when you see someone doesn't want, it's not enough. That's the key phrase. It's never enough. Be careful, because you are being hooked. Now, it's called damned if you do and damned if you don't. Sorry, not good enough. You didn't say it properly. I'm sorry, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. I've seen people get offended when people say, yes, ma'am. What, you make me feel old. I saw that in a store once. It was like some lady, how dare you call me ma'am? That makes me like I'm old. It's like, oh, sir, what do you want to say? What are you going to say? They don't want to hear, because they're not at peace. They're afraid. Forgive them, they know not what they do. But forgive them, they know not what they do doesn't mean you're supposed to sign up to be abused. And that's why sometimes when I've dealt with individuals, I sometimes say, all right, whatever it is they're asking, okay, I'm going to say it one more time. Let's pretend it's an apology. Sorry about that. But I will sometimes, if pushed that far, I'll repeat it one more time. I'll say that because I'm making it clear. This is odd, and I'm out of here. The ejector. This conversation, it's done. This is the last time I'm going to answer this question. See? So set your boundaries for yourselves. Be careful not to be hooked into the, endless loop of no-win situations. If it's a no-win, that's not just a little off. That's the opposite of God's intention. The Holy Spirit is the ultimate embodiment of what's called win-win scenarios. It doesn't mean everybody accepts that it's win-win. Sometimes it's win and semi-wins, because some people want to stay upset. But it was intended as a win-win. The ego wants lose. Nobody happy, nobody at peace. And that's where you end up if you get hooked. Let's take a few centering breaths, please. Centering, quieting the mind. And one constructive way to deal with the mind part, right now, think back for half a minute at anything you heard that worked for you today or made sense today. And then just soak it in as yours. Not a lecture you heard, just soak it in. This is me, it makes sense. I believe this. And own it as yourself. So you heard it talk, but now you're self-talking in a healthy way and owning the shift, owning the experience. There's nobody else in the room and nobody at a podium talking. You're just having your own experience, epiphany. And this is good understanding. And then take a moment to feel peace inside of what you're experiencing. Whether it was you heard something you really needed for yourself, or whether you heard things that were just major epiphanies, things that just made sense, whatever it is, underneath it, try to imagine a feeling of peace. Kind of like, this really made sense. This really made sense. This talk that's now a part of me, because I chose to integrate parts. Let other parts go that you don't like. Then that's one level of peace, a healthy form of peace. Try to feel that, not think it. This decompression. Then let's imagine that a light beaming from heaven itself beams down onto you and through you and gives you another level of peace, at least let's say 100 times what you were already imagining. Because that's within the mind's possibility, even though it's a lot, 100 times. It could technically be said to be 1,000,000,000,000. But just start with 100. I have peace 100 times more than I did from this talk experience today. That light becomes a symbol that this is supernatural. Light, peace, head to toe, front to back, side to side. Just total tranquility. It's invincible. No fear can tear into it. Nothing. Impenetrable peace. And then bring up just one example of where you did the opposite. Obsessing to understand something. To figure something out. To wrap your mind around it. Why did they leave? Why did that person die? Why did my child go off to war? How did this person become president? Whatever's on your mind. Just notice it. And I'm talking any president, any politician. How? Why? Betrayals. And look at the feeling difference. And try to look at this from your peaceful place. Don't go dwelling into it. Look at it objectively and realize that's insanity. That's so not me in my true self. Why did I think their answer was going to bring me anything? Why did I need to be heard? Why did I need to push for something? What was I thinking? And that's the key. Thinking. None of this could have helped me. This, what I'm feeling now, this peace, that's what I was looking for all along. See the contrast and choose back to peace. Not because I'm asking you to. Try to see that it makes sense to go to peace rather than thinking understanding. One comes from the outside. One is on the inside. So we're only calling on something that's organic. It's real. It's in us, as us. Take a moment to close and just simply giving thanks. Just clarity in your mind. Just giving thanks. And giving thanks is an attitude like, I got it. I got it. It's God in me. I got it. This peace forever. And so it is. Thank you, guys. Rebecca was asking me if there's any DVD sets, in case you folks are interested. The one called Spirituality Volume 4, all the DVD sets have 4 talks. This one's got karma, contracts, prosperity and abundance, careful what you ask for, and forgiveness versus judgment. So if you're interested, Spirituality Volume 4 would be the closest set to something along these lines. All right, we're going to do our collection. Please don't come out of peace to do the collection. Try to take it with you into all things you do. Try to get the peace to last as many minutes or hours or even days as possible. Okay? It's very easy to come out of that because we're in this world that's not designed peacefully. All right? So our collections, be as generous as you can be, and folks online as well. While they're getting ready for that, it'll only take a minute. Actually, go ahead and come on up. If you don't know the prosperity blessing, it's posted online, but it's also on your brochures. All right, the prosperity blessing. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Thank you. So while they're passing the baskets, it'll only take them a minute to do so. And I want to thank, all of our ushers, the welcoming at the door and the helping with collection and, just all the things they do. It's really, really a great crew of people. Our lead chaplain, Jeff, is in charge of the usher program as well. So it's really, really stellar. While they're passing those around, I want to just say one or two things. If you're from out of town, or if you're coming into town, or live locally, remember the round room over there, our healing room, has the crystal bed in case you'd like to receive any, ramping up the immunity and health and healing. It's a pretty phenomenal experience. So check that out. And you book those in the bookstore if you want to have a session. And I also want to thank online. There's a person online that we get donations from people, and that's how we survive, obviously, three-dimensionally speaking. And so we get donations from you folks, and then we get online as well. And one of our long-distance people made a donation, and it was a nice amount. It was very generous of them. But what they did is, these people, any donations are great. These folks, what they do is they have a lot of stocks. So they actually donate in the form of stocks. So they transfer stocks into an account for us. So there's all kinds of ways you can be supportive. Always remember prayer. Prayer of love and support for everything we do. That's the stellar spiritual part of it, okay? Then the material part is welcome as well. So thank you. All right. So they're done with the donation baskets. We're going to do our closing prayer. Because we have a meeting coming up shortly, we'll skip on a song for closing, but we'll do our closing prayer. Please stand, though. So great. Our opening song, Good, Good Father. That was really beautiful to set the tone, right? Somebody's on fire. Somebody's alarm, so thank you. All right. So just tuning into gratitude, tuning into peace, such gratitude of appreciation. I chose to be here and hear this today, online or here in person. I chose. Everything's a choice. I could have been distracted. I could have been doing something else. I'm plugging in to God, and that's a really good thing. And I'm also here amongst other people all around the world. Not everybody and everything does that in this world. I'm part of something that's global and spiritual. And it's consistent, day after day and week after week. I must have done well, chosen well. And it's not arrogant to thank ourselves for good choices. That's the Holy Spirit of God within us. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. All right, guys. Blessings to you all. We'll see you.